How's that?
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Brown, and I have with me today Fred and Donna Dupuis. Fred worked with me over the last couple of years on a legal matter that ultimately went all the way through the arbitration process before we settled. And I think it's going to be helpful for folks out there to hear what the process was like and how we helped Fred and Donna get a good outcome. So good morning, Fred. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you today?
We're great.
Great,
Thank you
thanks.
for asking.
Good, good. So it's been a couple of months now since we finished up your matter. It was an employment matter and a whistleblower claim that you had. And you came to see me about 3 years ago now, 2-3 years ago, and we went through an entire process of litigation and hearings and testimony and depositions. And ultimately, after we went through that process, we reached a settlement. So I wanted to talk to you today about that process. And Fred, you were the client, but Donna, you were the support system all the way through it. So I think it's going to be helpful to hear from you too. So the first question I have is, Fred, prior to this legal action that you were involved in with your former employer, had you ever had any lawsuit experience before? Had you ever been involved in a lawsuit?
I was. I had been involved in a suit back in 98, 99 in my position with the corporation. I had some familiarity. I was named in a lawsuit personally and professionally in my capacity as my position. So I had a little bit of understanding of what lawsuits were and the process to some degree.
And without giving any particular details about the job that you had a pretty high ranking position with your employer, didn't you?
I did. I was a senior manager on the senior management team.
Okay. When you got yourself involved in this matter that ultimately led to litigation, had you thought about what you might need or what you might want from a lawyer?
Well, I absolutely did. And what I would like to say is for most of my career, almost 40 years, I was on the other side, if you will, and not a person who was a party to a lawsuit. I was actually participating in the lawsuits on the other side. But when you're the person who's sitting on this side of the table now, it makes it a little bit more personal, and certainly you want the best person, somebody who has deep experience in employment law, and in my particular situation, knowledge of the operations of governmental agencies.
Donna, did you have any input with Fred in talking about what you thought he might need and going through this? Because you were a big part of this as well.
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, we had a very difficult time finding a lawyer in the first place because of certain conflicts of interest with other law firms. And it got very frustrating. So we ended up having a lawyer before we had you. And from day one, I told Fred, this is not the right person for this job. And I think we lasted how long with him?
A few months.
A few months. And I said, we need to get someone who is in labor law. And so we reached out to some family and friends and to ask for some referrals. And ultimately, that's how we got your name. From there, it went much smoother and much better and less frustrating.
Now, I thought that we had a good working relationship, but I think that's important. Anytime that someone hires a lawyer, you have to be able to connect with each other. Fred, what did you think was most important about the relationship that you had with me and my law firm?
First of all, character, integrity, and trust. Those are three very important words in my vocabulary. And I knew it in the first 10, 15 minutes that I met with you. Matter of fact, I was impressed when I reached out to you. You reached out back to me at about 11 o'clock at night, which I was very impressed. And then you said, well, let's meet Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, which even impressed me more. So it just showed me that you were dedicated, that you were someone who took an interest in their clients. And just those two small things spoke volumes about you. But after meeting you and talking with you at our first meeting, I was very, very impressed with your credentials and your presence and just your manner. I felt extremely comfortable with you.
And when I hire clients, I also look for some of the same characteristics, right? Because there's some people out there that I know I cannot work with. But after I met with you, I thought that you had been wronged in your job And I also thought that you were the type of person that I could work with so that we could make it right. And so I thought that our communication was good and we were able to talk about things a lot. And I know that there were times probably even when we were working together where you may not have been completely satisfied with something I did or something I thought, but we always talked it through. And I think we always came to an understanding. And there were probably times where I didn't agree with some of your ideas about things, but again, we could
Sure.
talk it through, and that was important.
Sure. And I think, again, from being the client, the difference, as I said earlier, about being part of my business, when it's you personally, emotions creep into the conversation.
Yeah.
And emotions are a big part of having to deal with the client. And I think you did that very well. You let me vent when I needed to vent. You told me when I was wrong, and I appreciated that. And I had to sit back down and kind of just say, listen, he's the expert. He's been through this before. I haven't. So I'm going to defer to him. I hired him. He's in my best interest. So you were very, very good at that.
Thank you. Thank you. Donna, what did you think that your role was in this whole process, right? Because you're Fred's biggest supporter, obviously, and what happened to him hurt you probably as much, if not more, than it hurt Fred, because at least Fred was sort of in control. You were sort of the bystander who had to watch him go through it. What did this whole process mean to you?
Well, having him have to go through this was probably one of the most difficult things I've had to do, our family has had to do, because, knowing him the way we do, we knew without a shadow of a doubt that he was, being wronged by the company. And to watch him go through all the emotions from, shock to anger to sorrow to, feeling that his whole life was basically ruined because of somebody's vendetta against him. It was very difficult. And there are times when, we would argue about it. Yeah. Because, there are times when I said to him, is this worth it? Is this worth your emotional and physical well-being? Because it was very hard on him and me. But ultimately we decided that it was worth it, because I don't think he would have gotten better if we didn't go through it.
Yeah. One of the things I always tell my clients when they first come meet with me and we talk about going down the road of litigation is, it's not like TV or the movies. It's a long process, and it's emotional, and you need to be physically well and mentally well to go through it. Were there certain things, Fred, that you did to take care of yourself through the process that were important to you as you were going through this? I mean, some of the things that I would do when I'm going through a tough time is I try to make sure I eat properly, get my sleep, and exercise a little more. Were there any sort of things that you and Donna did together or that you did by yourself to sort of help you through it?
Well, I can say with all honesty, it's all consuming, and it's from morning till night. So you need to do things that divert your attention or your thoughts on that. So I tried as best as I could to keep busy in my daily life. I wasn't working anymore, so that was a shock, having worked a long career and then not working. That in and of itself was a shock, but I tried to keep busy and engaged with some close friends that I had kept and who were very supportive, and family members. And one thing that I thought was very helpful, and I recommend anybody that can avail themselves of it. I was fortunate to have an EAP program with my employer, and I availed myself of that. The individual that I was working with was extremely helpful in terms of helping me emotionally navigate this time. So I would highly recommend, if that's available, to have some professional outlet, if you will, to help you navigate it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And it's a common piece of advice that I give my clients, which is, hey, you're going to need a lot of support going through this. And one of the great ways to do it is to have a third person therapist. And it doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be a priest. It could be somebody you trust, but not necessarily a friend or a spouse, because your friends or your spouse or your children are going through the emotional uproar as much as you are. And they love you. And so they feel the pain too. the third person can give you a better perspective on things and help you navigate it. So I thought that was important. Did you feel the same way, Donna, about that?
Yeah, absolutely. There were times where I would just have to leave the house or go for a walk, or just to get away from Fred, because he was so emotional. And you're right, it hurt me too to see him that way, because he's normally very strong, and I lean on him. So this was like a kind of reverse roles, and
Right.
it was tough, but we got through it together. We did.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought that you did handle it in a healthful way, the two of you, because it is difficult. Sometimes there's days where you get body blows, right?
Mhm.
But you were resilient in that regard. So I think you had all the systems set up to help you through it. So let me ask you this. I know there were bad days, and I hate talking about the bad days. I want to talk about the good days. What parts of the process gave you the most satisfaction?
That's easy.
Yeah, I think when we were engaged in the hearing process, and I had the ability to go first to speak and give my position on the matter and what I felt was important and why I was wronged. I think when we started to bring in other witnesses in that process who provided affirmation to the facts that we were trying to prove, that was comforting. It was helpful. It made me feel that we were solidifying our case and proving our case. So witness testimony was important.
Yeah, I agree. And that required preparation, and a lot of the preparation falls on the lawyer, but a good amount of the preparation falls on the client.
Mhm.
So you just described the type of preparation that you did to assist me in putting the case together.
Yes. I took as much time, because I had time, I took as much time as I needed to formulate from conception to through the event what I believe the positions were, the facts were, and to provide you a chronology of events that you could work from to build your defense of me. And I think I hope that was helpful to you. I come from a background of law enforcement security, so I'm detail oriented. I take copious notes, and I always have, which I think is an important thing. And I have a pretty good memory too, and I can contextually remember things quite well. And I think that was helpful to you, and certainly was to me.
Yeah, I'll say this, the documents that you gave me, and there was a lot of paper in this file, but the documents that you gave me were extraordinarily helpful because it helped me build a timeline of events. I wasn't there, but by having the paper, and I had gotten the file from your previous lawyer, so it wasn't completely well organized, but just having the paper and being able to organize it helped me understand the story. And and it was a complex story, as you remember. There were a
Yes.
lot of moving pieces, but we were able to put it together between the two of us, and I think that helped a lot. But I think it was important that we were able to work together in putting it
Yes,
in place.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of our communication in this case was electronic, through email and that sort of thing. There wasn't a lot of face-to-face communication, except when we got to the hearing process, I guess. How did you feel about how we handled communication? Were you satisfied? Were there things that could have been different? Were there things that you liked or didn't like?
No, I think for having access to you is very good. I certainly appreciate the fact that I wasn't your only client, busy and probably with issues, lines that need to be made, but you certainly made yourself available face to face when we needed to, and you would get back to me at the end of the day or the next day with your comments. So I was very pleased with your engagement with me and answering any questions I may have.
Yeah, and one of the things I could say too is I have some clients who reach out to me for every little thing, and so they become the boy who cried wolf.
Yes.
You understood the relationship in such a way that you would reach out to me when it was important. So if I got pinged by Fred Dupuis, I knew I needed to take a look at it and get back to you because it was important.
Sure.
And I guess sometimes I'm curious about how sometimes some clients understand the boundary of that relationship and others don't. It might simply be intuitive. You may simply know based on your position in the world. Um, I think this is for me too, more than anything. Was I clear about what the boundary was and when to reach out and when not to? And was I fair about that, do you think?
You were. You absolutely were. And just to reiterate what you were saying there, I think a lot of people are disillusioned, perhaps by watching too much television and police shows, if you will, or lawyer shows. Is very misleading. Those things don't happen within a half hour. You're not tried, convicted, and sentenced in a half hour, an hour. I mean, they take time, and your lawyer is your partner. And that's why it's critical that at the beginning process, you find the right lawyer with all the skill sets and you have that connection. I think the connection is the most important. And I think if you have that, your lawyer will guide you to contact him or her when you feel it's very important. If it's frivolous, you may not get a response quick enough, and that's okay. But that's the little bit of the reality check for the client to say, hey, listen, this is not television anymore. This isn't a movie. This is the real world.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's sort of the difficult part for me as a lawyer, because I want to respond all the time, but I only have so much time,
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Donna, did you have in your mind, as this started and as we were going through it, what a good outcome would be for Fred, what you wanted to see happen for him?
Yes. Yes.
And what was it?
To clear his name and reputation that he's worked so hard for many, many years, to be vindicated, not only personally, but publicly, because it was a very public case. And, and the lies that came out were very hurtful. So yes, I wanted him to be vindicated, and I wanted the other people that were against him to be exposed for their lies. And I believe that you did that.
Thanks. We tried. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it was a lot of work, but I agree with you. That's what I wanted too.
Mhm.
I wanted Fred to be vindicated because what happened to him wasn't right.
Right.
It was political and it was hurtful. So and I've had lots of cases in my 27 years of doing this. I thought that the connection that Fred and I had in doing this together was one of the best working relationships I've had in my career. I guess that's why we're sitting here talking about it
That's
today.
right. That's right. Right. Things happen for a reason. And
Yeah.
I think, again, my case was a complex one, and it navigated a lot of roads that were difficult, and it was a highly politicized case. And you had to be assertive, but you had to be careful at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Even at the end when we were trying to finalize it.
Yes.
Yeah. If you had it to do all over again, is there anything that you would change or anything that you would put more emphasis on?
Well, I have always kind of set in some of my downtime thought about that. Everybody likes the Monday morning quarterback a particular situation. But quite honestly, I can say in all fairness, Eric, that there's really nothing that I would have done differently. I say this, my prayers were answered when I was introduced to you, because you were the right person for my case.
Right.
Absolutely, hands down. And I knew that from the get-go. So starting from there, as we move forward, everything fell into place. You were always prepared. You were strategic. And I was so proud of you at certain moments during the hearing process, when you would just, very calmly, but directly call out either a particular witness or the opposing counsel, and it just stopped it dead in the water right there. I mean, it was silence. And I could hear afterwards, many people said, God, if we ever need a lawyer in employment law, it's going to be Eric Brown, because he just knocked it out of the park. And I agreed with that. And I said, I'm a very lucky man to have that caliber of a person to be able to handle that. Not knowing what the conversations were going to be on the fly, you were able to kind of collect your thoughts and put that together.
Right.
Yeah, I've been lucky to have a great support system too that helps me do what I need to do. So I think we're both lucky in that regard, Fred.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, this has been really helpful.
Good.
I really enjoyed talking with both of you again.
Same here.
I'm so happy with the outcome that we had.
Yes.
And I think things are better for all of us now that we're through this.
Yeah, now that it's behind us.
They are. It's we're just starting to kind of, believe it or not, and I know this sounds, as Donna alluded to, she says, you were always a very strong person, and I am generally. I'm not a person that goes out and looks for trouble, but I won't run from it either. I can guarantee you that. And I'm not proud of that, but that's who I am.
Sure.
You're not going to walk over me. I can guarantee you. Or if you do, I'll be biting you in the ankles as you go by. But the bottom line is that I think back of this process, and I don't know why this ever happened to me, but it did. And I try to now look at the positive points and what were the learning experiences in this. And if I can be helpful to anybody else who goes through this or is going to experience this, I'm glad to do so. I'm glad to help anybody I can. I don't wish for anybody to have to go through it, but if you do, there's people out there that are there to help you, and you're one of them. And I say this all the time. I highly recommend you. I think you're a quality person, and I think that's most important with lawyers. Lawyers have bad reputations in general, but I can honestly say in my heart of hearts that you're a quality person. You're a good man. You have principles, you have integrity, and you have character, and that speaks volumes in my book.
Right.
I really appreciate it. Thanks both of you for taking the time today.
No problem,
You're
Eric.
welcome.
No problem. And if you need anything else, don't hesitate to give us a call, and keep in touch, and happy holidays to you and your family.
Yeah.
Same to you all too.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay, Eric. Take care now.
Bye.